Hello everyone, it is Xanet Pailet and we are live talking love, sex, and intimacy with Xanet. So this is edgy for me because I vowed when I started doing these Facebook Lives on Friday at 10 that I would do them wherever I was, and I know a lot of people do that, but I'm usually in my office and everything is nice and calm and sweet, and today it just didn't seem to work out that way, so I ended up being at the gym. Hi B. And I'm now next door to the gym, having just completed a spin class, but I promised to be able to continue doing this, so I am. So today, the question that I asked, and if you're on my newsletter list, you got a newsletter question around it, is, does sex happen in your body? And I know that sounds like a really crazy question. Does sex happen in your body? Obviously it does happen in our body physiologically. But in fact, one of the pieces that really impact our enjoyment of sex, the amount of pleasure that we can experience, how much fun that we're having, has to do with how connected you are to your own body and to your own sensations. Remember when I started out a couple of weeks ago, I said we're going to look at our intimacy and relationship blueprint, and that there are three components to that blueprint. Just to review, one is, thanks for the highs, the sexual messages, or the messages that you received about sex as a child growing up, early first sexual experiences and relationships with opposite members of the opposite sex and also the same sex. And that's what we call your sexual blueprint. That's the first leg of the stool. The second leg of the stool is attachment theory, and how attached what your adult attachment theory is. And I think I did that last week, and that was a really long Facebook post. It went on for about 25 or 30 minutes. And there's somebody, just ignore, there's somebody behind me who's cleaning tables. And then the third spoke of this, or the third leg of the stool, is how connected you are to your own body, just in general, not even just during sex, but in general, how connected you are to your own body, to your own sensations, to feeling what's happening inside of us. And what I find is that for many of us, we're not that connected to our body. I mean, this is a very disconnected society in many ways. We spend a lot of time on our PDAs and on our iPhones and on our computers, and we're very visually involved, but we're not necessarily feeling what's happening inside of our body. And that is not a natural state of being, right? For those of you who have had babies or have been around babies, you will see when there's a little baby around how their natural state of being is to be completely comfortable and in their body. I mean, they basically only can feel sensations in their body, and the range of sensations that they have are the same range of sensations we have. They can feel pleasure, and they can express pleasure, and they can feel pain and discomfort and cold, but it all happens within their body because they have no words to be able to express. And that's how, obviously, babies communicate with us. When they're unhappy, when they're in pain, they let you know by crying and making sound, right? What happens? What happens to the way in which we used to be so connected to our bodies and our sexuality and pleasure as babies, and then that changes completely as we start to grow up? Well, obviously, our cognitive muscle, our brain, starts coming into play, and we start to be much more aware of what people are saying and how they're saying it to us. So babies have no shame if something feels pleasurable, whether they're peeing or they're pooping or, they're cooing because they're breastfeeding, which can be a very central experience for a baby, right? They just express their pleasure. That's it. That doesn't happen with us as we get older, right? We start to hear comments from adults. We start to see how, that my mom didn't really approve of when I touched myself, right? We start to get those messages, and it starts to shut us down from our body, and we really start to get disconnected from our body and from our sensations. And when I talk about how to really enjoy sex, and whether you're having solo sex with yourself or you're with a partner, one of the things that I really help people focus on is like, can I feel sensations in my body? Because so much of the time we're up here in our head. Hi Patty, hi Tyler, hi Kelly, all my friends and family, which is kind of fun. We're up here in our head, and we're thinking about a million different things rather than actually connected to what's going on in our body. And so learning how to connect with your body and connect with sensations is one of the most important things that you can do, not only to have a better sex life in general, but for the rest of your life as well. Because when we're in our body and really feeling connected, we're much more aware and present about everything that's going on in our life. And I know for some of you this might sound a little woo-woo, and I do have a little bit of that side to me, but there's really a lot of truth to it. So what pulls us out of our body, the number one thing that pulls us out of our body, and the biggest organ that we have that gets involved during sex, is not our genitals, it's right up here, it's our brain. Our brain is what typically pulls us out of the experience. And I know we've all experienced this, men and women, right? Where you're just thinking. Sometimes you're thinking about the long to-do list you have to do, or sometimes you think about like anxiety starts showing up, like, oh my God, I have all these other things to do. Sometimes we're thinking like, God, this really just doesn't feel that good, or, I wish I was doing something else. Lots of ways in which we just pull ourselves out of the present experience of what's actually happening. My teachers, Celeste and Danielle, who are the Somatica training, who created Somatica and who are teaching Somatica, and one of the main people that I've studied with, actually just coincidentally wrote an article yesterday, I think it was in Reader's Digest, where they basically said, talking about the same thing. The organ that gets in our way of really enjoying sex is our brain, because we're thinking about so many different things all the time. So what can you do about it, right? Well, one thing that you can do about it, one of the things that they suggested, is to find something that really turns you on, that you can just focus on. Whether it's a sensation that you're feeling in your body, or whether it's some sort of picture or visual or fantasy that you have. Just to focus on one thing to try to get your mind going off a lot of different things. Another approach, and this is what I really work on with my clients, is to really focus on what you're feeling in your body, to really focus on sensation. And you'd be surprised, because a lot of times we think we're feeling sensations, but we're really not feeling it at the level in which we need in order to feel pleasure. And sometimes we don't feel sensation at all, right? So if anybody who's experienced any trauma or abuse, both men and women, a very common thing that happens is that we numb out from sensation, especially around any sort of sexual encounter or sexual activity, because it's a self-protective mechanism from the time in which we were traumatized, which is probably what happened during the traumatic events as well. But the body doesn't know any better, so it just starts to do that. So there can be a numbing out that happens if we've experienced trauma, but it's not just from trauma. We can also numb out just because we're in a different place in our body and we're just up in our head as well. So what I want, I have this really great program. If, Facebook Live, it seems like for the millionth time they changed the platform. And so I used to be able to write comments, and I have no idea how to do that right now, but I can do this after I get off. I have this really great program. It's a 14-day free program. It's called My Awake Body. And basically what it does is it gives you different exercises that you can do to start to awaken the body. And awakening the body starts with really being present and really being grounded. And that means that you're feeling your body in the space, right? Because so much of the time we're walking around up in our head and we're not really connected to our body. And then other ways to be able to start to feel your body, and we can just do this for a moment. Hey, Stephen. Other ways to be able to feel your body is to just to focus, like take one hand and take your other hand and just close your eyes for a moment and touch your hand really slowly and gently and notice the sensations, right? So much of the time we're not actually feeling the sensations that are going on in our body because we're not really here in our body, we're someplace else, right? So just notice, touch is one of the ways in which we can really come into our body, and different people come into their body in like different ways, but all of it involves using one or more of the five senses that we have. Another great way to be able to start to feel your body is to focus on breath. For many people, when we meditate, for those of you who are sort of silent meditators, sometimes when we meditate, we don't actually feel our body. We're kind of more up here in a more of a lost space. But if you can notice your breath and really feel it, like placing your hands on your belly so that when you inhale and you expand your belly, you really feel that, and then you exhale and let it go. And inhale your belly and let it go, right? So just noticing, like, how can I connect with my body in a way that feels good for me? And once you're starting to feel more comfortable around connecting with your body, you're going to start to notice that your body has a lot of information that it can give you. Like, all of your intuition is contained in the body. In this program, which is, by the way, a free program, it's just a resource for you guys if you're interested in it. One of the exercises that we do is a really great one, is knowing your yes versus knowing your no. And I don't mean knowing your yes up in your head versus knowing your no in your head. I mean knowing your yes in your body. Like, what does a yes in the body, what does the sensation of yes in the body feel like? The more, and the way we do this in this little exercise is through visualizing, or you could do this for real, eating something that you love, something that's delicious. And then we really notice all of the sensations of, wow, when, for me, it's chocolate, of course. When I eat a piece of chocolate, what do I feel, right? This feeling of warmth and enjoyment. And I really start to track, where do I notice that in my body? Versus when I eat something that I hate, like horseradish, for example, a whole different experience happens. That's a way in which the body is saying yes versus no. And it's very, very useful, not only during sex, because you get to really feel like, is this a yes right now, or am I in a no place? But it's also useful in the rest of your life. It allows you to start to use another part, a very important and powerful part, to be able to make life choices, right? Make life choices like, do I take this job or don't I take this job? This whole feeling of intuition comes from within the body, which is another probably really important reason, maybe one of the most important reasons, why connecting with your body is a very, very powerful thing to do, and actually can start to transform your life. It's interesting because I think you guys know that I've written this book, Living an Orgasmic Life, super excited about it, and I'm in my final editing process, and I hired somebody to design the cover, and it's all awesome. And I was reading my last chapter, which was Living an Orgasmic Life, even though the book is called Living an Orgasmic Life, kind of like what are the other ways to live an orgasmic life and what happens. And what I noticed in the writing was like connecting with your intuition, because you're connected to your body, is one of the most, for me, was one of the most powerful changes that happen. And it's I see that happen all the time in other people who are going through this process of sexual awareness and sexual awakening, because when we're embodied, we are so connected to our core that we're able to listen to what our body tells us to do and move in that direction. And it rarely screws up. It's almost always correct, because it has this level of knowledge and awareness that we don't have in our head. So what does this have to do with sex? It has a lot to do with sex, because if you're in your body, you can really experience more sensation. Many of the reasons that we struggle with sex, not all, but many of the reasons that we struggle, is that we're not feeling enough pleasure. I'm not having an orgasm. I'm not feeling enough sensation. There's plenty of other reasons as well, but these are just some of the ones that show up quite a bit. And being out of your body is a big part of the problem. So using breath to if you're in a sexual situation and you're starting to feel like you're losing it, right? And there aren't other issues that are going out, one of the things that you can do is just have a check-in with yourself. What am I feeling? What sensations am I feeling? Can I take a couple of breaths? Can I feel my fingers? Can I feel my butt? Can I feel my toes? It also allows you in a sexual situation to increase sensation and pleasure and awareness by being focused more in your body and using some tools to be able to enhance pleasure as well. Okay, I think that's it for the beginning of embodied sexuality. That's the third part of the blueprint. I want to say again that I do have a closed Facebook group. It's called Talking Love, Sex, and Intimacy with Xanet, and it's a little lonely right now, so all you wonderful people who are on it, I'd love for you to join us there. If anybody has a question, you can text me, or I'm sorry, put something on Facebook and ask a question. And if not, I will talk to you. Hi, Howard. If not, I will talk to you next Friday, Talking Love, Sex, and Intimacy with Xanet at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm not sure what the topic is going to be, but one of the things that's really fun is if you send me an email or put a comment in the Facebook group with a question or something that you'd like to have some more information about. That's kind of a really fun way to be able to do these Facebook Lives. This will also be available later. If you just joined this moment, I will post it so that you will be able to see the whole Facebook Live event. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Ciao.